Hi guys, welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. And today guys, I will be reviewing Boosh Spellslinger by Sebastien De Castell. This is book 1 in the Spellslinger series, which is the beginning of Sebastien De Castell's YA series. So you guys know, if you have watched my channel, that I love the Greatcoats. The Greatcoats was probably my it was my second favorite series that I read last year. Really my second favorite series kind of all time right now, except for Discworld, which, you know, I'm not sure anything is ever going to be able to top Discworld. And I love the Greatcoats, and I love Sebastien De Castell as an author. So this review is going to be seeing, did I love Spellslinger as much as the Greatcoats? And if not, why? So, without wasting any more time, let's get down to business. So, the world of Spellslinger is a really interesting one, and that is one of this book's strongest points, is its lore and kind of world building. Our action takes place in the kind of kingdom or the city of the Sha'tep, who are the magic users of this world, and they all kind of live they'll live together in this city. I can't remember if it takes place underground, if the whole place is you know, kind of underground, but I just picture the whole book taking place at night in caves. But I know there are caves and that are close to kind of these central focal points that their magic is stronger when they're near it and weaker when they get farther away. So that's why they all kind of live together near these points of magic so they can use their magic. Now their magic, they can't really be named a mage until their 16th birthday. And by the time they're 16, they have tattoos. They have 6 different bands of tattoos on their arms or biceps or whatever that each stand for one of these schools of magic. And these 6 schools of magic are iron, ember, silk, sand, blood, and breath. And each one of these kind of schools of magic brings with it different kind of ways to shape your powers. But you cannot really use these abilities, at least to any kind of effective level, unless the tattoos kind of spark. They glow once they've, you know, come to life. And so you don't really have control over which ones spark. Some people, all 6 of them spark, and those are super powerful mages. And some of them, for a lot of people, only one of them spark. And for our poor hero, 16-year-old Kellen, none of them have sparked yet. So once you get to 16, you have to enter a mage duel, and you duel another, you know, up-and-coming mage. So you have to duel them with whatever magics you have, and if you win, then you have to find a brand new application for that magic. You have to kind of invent a spell, if you will. And once you've done that, you are named a full mage of your family's house or whatever. This kind of society is ruled by the prince of the most powerful house. If you fail any of these, or your magic does not spark, you are doomed to a life as a Sha'tep, which are the unmagic, the no mages, if you will. You're doomed to a life with no magic, and you are doomed to a life of servitude to the Sha'tep. In fact, our hero Kellen, who is the son of really kind of the most prominent family next to the prince in this city, his uncle Abidos is actually their butler, their house servant, because even though his dad and his uncle were really close friends, really close growing up, and you know, brothers should be, Abidos's magic didn't spark, Kellen's dad's magic did, and so he's treated like a servant. So just what the magic can do, the idea of sparking, the different ways it's used. In the very first duel, the kid Tenet, first of all, just as a caveat, Tenet is a murderous bully. I have read so many books recently with the murderous bully trope, and I just can't, guys. I just, to quote the high school girls, I just can't even. I can't deal with murderous bullies anymore. I just can't. But his ability, he has sparked the Iron Band, and so he uses Gut Sword, and so it's like a psychic sword. It's like psychic damage if you play D&D. You feel like you're being stabbed in the gut, but there's no actual physical blade stabbing you. So it's just all kind of stuff. Ember, obviously, is fire magic. Breath is kind of the lamest one, and it has to do with air and kind of lighting, sparking these little lamps or whatever. And so we only scratch the surface of what those 6 schools of magic can do. And so I really like the lore in here. And this is one of the things that, even though this is a YA novel and a YA series, it has a pretty bleak outlook. Much like the Greatcoats, like the world of the Sha'tep is really similar to the world of Tristia in its bleakness. The Sha'tep are pretty freaking terrible. Their interest only, it is a society solely based on magical ability. There's no loyalty to friends, there's no loyalty to family. The fact that Kellen can't spark and so doesn't really have any magical ability to speak of, and his friends treating him like friends who 2 days ago were good buddies of his, but now they see that he doesn't have any band spark, they treat him like garbage. The whole society is like that. So where Tristia is a really bleak place, but it has, even though they've cast off the Greatcoats, it at least has the Greatcoats who frickin' stand for something. The Sha'tep don't stand for anything. They're just terrible people. It's a really terrible society where all that matters is your ability and your magical power. Now, the in-world reason for this is because there's another kingdom of kind of like warriors. I think it's across the sea or somewhere. The geography is not super clear to me just yet. But there's another kingdom that is that has fought the Sha'tep in the past, and they're just kind of waiting for the weakness of the Sha'tep, whose numbers have been dwindling over the years, to kind of take them over. So they just can't deal or brook with people who are just going to be like drags on the society. And so, it's all for self-preservation or whatever. But it actually reminds me a whole lot of Gold Society from Pierce Brown's Red Rising series, in that they're just really callous when it comes to if you are not powerful, if you are not strong, they have no use for you. They're just going to cast you aside. There's another part of the lore that I really, really like, and that's called the Argosi, who are kind of these wandering kind of gunslinger, American Old Western type people. They're just kind of nomadic rovers, because right at the beginning, Kellen is introduced to this wanderer who claims she's a cartographer, which is a map maker, who says her name is Farius Parfax, and she's an Argosi, and she wears a cowboy hat, she smokes cigarettes, and she uses magic through kind of a deck of cards. So she does this, there's this kind of weird card magic that isn't super explained. It's kind of like owing debts. You use the cards to owe debts, these red cards to, I owe you this, and it's kind of used to kind of predict things that are gonna happen, but it also they also throw them they're lined in metal, so they can throw them like flying razor blades, which is just freaking awesome. And that aesthetic, the Wild West aesthetic and the cowboy hat and the cards, throwing cards and magic tricks with cards and kind of a Wild West thing has always been something that's kind of fascinated me. So Farius Parfax is really, really interesting to me, especially since she does not fit into the Sha'tep society mold at all. She rubs everyone the wrong way. And so her and Kellen kind of form this unlikely friendship, because, she's an outsider, and Kellen, not having any freaking band spark, is really kind of viewed as an outsider. And so all of the lore and world building and magic and stuff that De Castell has done here, I really, really enjoy. The classic stuff from De Castell is here. De Castell writes fantastic dialogue. It's just really believable. It's really snappy. It's really funny. So the dialogue between all the characters are really funny. Everyone has their own distinct voice. He does a really good job there. We have the Here Comes the Cavalry trope, which doesn't, I actively like. I was gonna say it doesn't bother me, but I actively enjoy the Here Comes the Cavalry trope. I know some people don't like our heroes being put in these, terrible situations, and, everything's about to go wrong, and then, oh, here comes people to save. I love that crap, guys. I love that crap. It is a very, very fast-paced book. I read this book in 2 days, which is the fastest I've read a book in 2021 for sure. It's just it reads really, really fast. It has all of the classic kind of swashbuckling things that I like from De Castell, and it talks a lot about what is it what is your value, to society, and it talks about in your own story, everyone is the hero of their own story, right? Everyone's not just because someone is opposed to you does not mean they're necessarily evil, because in their mind, they are doing the right thing and you're the villain standing in their way. And so I loved all of these things that kind of feel very Greatcoatsy and this really, really interesting world, which is probably my favorite part. I loved all of that. However, I did not love this book as much as I love Greatcoats. I really liked it, but I did not love it as much as I love Greatcoats. In fact, talking about the world is actually making me kind of like it even more than I did kind of on first read. And I think the problem is that where Falkio and the Greatcoats kind of stand for something, Kellen is a 16-year-old kid. That's part of the problem, is I don't love young protagonists just in general. That's part of the reason I don't really read a lot of YA, is I don't love young protagonists, and they tend to be filled with romance. This book is not. This book is blessedly free of most romance, which I'm totally fine with. But Kellen is really young, and he's also super useless. Falkio is the best duelist in the country. Despite Falkio's many, many mistakes that he made, he is the best duelist in the country, and he also stands for, his own personal virtue and the virtue of King Palus. Kellen does not know what he stands for, because he's bad at everything. He doesn't have any magic, and I do really like I don't mind Kellen all that much, because I do really like that Kellen kind of has to rely on his wits because he doesn't have any magic. He has to kind of lie and bluff his way through situations to where it looks like he's doing magic. So I do like that, but he's not good at anything, and so a lot of stuff is kind of happening to Kellen because he doesn't have a ton of agency because he sucks at everything. And I asked someone when I talked about this, and I think my wrap up, I asked if he ever got good at anything, and people were like, not really. So, I mean, that'll be interesting. But I do like him with Farius Parfax. I kind of like where the story is going from there, but it just reads really young in places. Like Kellen and all of his friends are young, and they're not my favorite. And I think also there is an animal companion, a squirrel cat, that is just rabidly rude and mean. And when I read it, because Kellen can understand him. His name is Rakis. Kellen can understand him, and Rakis is super abrasive and super rude and super foul-mouthed and mean, and I don't love that when people are like that. And I don't love animal companions to start with, so I certainly don't love a rude animal companion. It was funny. Right before I filmed this, I looked at the dedication, because I was just flipping through just to refresh myself, and it says, "For my brother Peter, who always had a soft spot for obnoxious animals." And that's fair. I think Rakis is super obnoxious. I don't like obnoxious animals. And so Rakis kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It felt really tonally jarring to me. He did grow on me a little bit toward the end of the book. I asked again, I've heard that he's pretty much that way in all the books, which is fine. Speaking of Rakis, I've showed you at the beginning the cover for the American Spellslinger, and I really liked that cover, but then I saw the British covers, and the British covers are so much freaking better. They look so awesome. Just that stylistic choice with freaking Kellen and Rakis on the top and Farius on the bottom is just freaking awesome. And the card motif, man, come on, America, come on, man. So anyway, I did really like this book, and a lot of the things that it does right, it does really well, but that kind of Kellen not having the agency of Falkio and my kind of distaste for Rakis really kind of kept this from being a new favorite of mine. I am really excited to continue the series because, like I said, even talking about the lore and kind of the magic has gotten me super interested in it again. Plus, the way the story ended, I'm eager to see kind of where that's going. I just know that we're going to get more of kind of the world at large, more of these other peoples outside the Sha'tep that it talks about. And so I am really excited because De Castell is one of my favorite authors, and I absolutely want to read everything that he has written. He just came out with kind of a side novel of this series, which is completed, called The Way of the Argosi, which is kind of a Farius Parfax origin story, which I'm super, super pumped to read. Other things that if you like the kind of the De Castell's narrative voice of Greatcoats, that's here. You'll like that. There is a lot of several instances of info dumping because it's trying to explain this world, but it's not really any worse than it is in Greatcoats. Greatcoats kind of does that as well, and that doesn't bother me. Some people hate info dumping. It's you stopped for 1 second to tell us about the world. I hate you. That's not me. It doesn't bother me. Thanks for letting me know what this is so I don't have to sit here and wonder. I don't like to work super hard when I'm reading. I work at work. I wanna chillax when I'm reading. So that's there. So just be warned about that. And also kind of to the darkness that I was talking about, kind of the bleakness, it's really kind of disturbing how cruel these people are to Kellen. Everyone in this society is really almost sadistically cruel to Kellen. it is hard to read sometimes. I'm just like, are you sure this is a YA book, De Castell? Yeah, and Kellen, like, they are so freaking mean to him, and Kellen, like, you do feel for him, even though he's useless. You do feel, because he's just desperate. He's a kid, like a 16-year-old kid. Like, if we can all remember what being 16 is like, and I teach school, so I see these sad children all day, every day. He just desperately wants to belong and to be loved by someone. And when you live in a society where, like, all that matters is, like, power, and you suck because your freaking bands won't spark, I mean, it's a tough time. So he's just on this quest for belonging, on this quest to be loved by someone, and it's just, I mean, it's kind of heartbreaking to watch sometimes. But anyway, I actually, like, I enjoyed it. I'm excited to read Shadow Black when I can get to it. I have not gotten to it yet, but I definitely want to finish out the series. On the Kingfin approval system, I'm going to give this book a solid excellent. It was an excellent book, and out of 5 stars, I originally rated this kind of 3.5 stars, rounded up to 4, but like the more it sat with me, the more I really enjoy that lore and the world building and kind of the rapid fire style. So I'm gonna probably bump this beast up to a 4-star read. I really enjoyed this book. So hopefully you heard something that you liked here. If you're a fan of the Greatcoats, I definitely recommend reading this. If you're not a fan of the Greatcoats, I would still recommend checking this out, depending on why you didn't like the Greatcoats. Like, if you didn't like the style of the Greatcoats, you're not gonna like that here. If you don't like Here Comes the Cavalry, you're definitely not gonna like this. Just don't read it. But if you love Here Comes the Cavalry, like, and I've started finding a small band of mighty men and women who love Here Comes the Cavalry. Guys, you guys are awesome. So that's it. That's all I have for you today, guys. As always, information about my Patreon and Discord is down in the description, and I'll see you guys next time.